Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA, and today we are diving into something so unbelievable, so jaw-dropping, that by the end of this video your hands might literally be shaking as you dig through your coin jar. Because what if I told you that a tiny, ordinary-looking dime, the kind you toss into a cup holder without a second thought, the kind that rolls under your couch and sits there for years, could secretly be worth more money than most people earn in an entire lifetime, and not just a comfortable lifetime, but a life of private jets, oceanfront mansions, and generational wealth that your grandchildren's grandchildren would still be living off of. And today we are not talking about one coin, we are not talking about two coins, we are talking about three Roosevelt dimes that have left the entire numismatic world completely speechless, and the first one alone is already worth a staggering, almost incomprehensible $30 million. Yes, you heard that right. $30 million for a dime. A 10-cent piece. Something most people would not even bend down to pick up off a sidewalk, and yet right now, as you are watching this video, there is a very real chance that one of these coins, or something incredibly close to it, could be sitting in a forgotten drawer, a dusty piggy bank, an old coffee can in your garage, or even loose in the bottom of a bag you have not opened in years. And I need you to stay with me through every single second of this video because we are covering three of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever identified, and trust me when I say each coin we reveal is more shocking than the last. The values keep climbing, the stories keep getting wilder, and by the time we reach that final coin, your jaw is going to be on the floor. So do not move, do not skip ahead, and do not you dare touch that back button, because we are starting right now with the 2003 Roosevelt Dime. And once I tell you everything about this coin, its history, its errors, its rarity, and why collectors are absolutely desperate to get their hands on it, you are going to look at every single dime you own in a completely different way. The year 2003 might not sound like ancient history to you, it might actually feel pretty recent. You might remember exactly what you were doing that year. Maybe you were in school, maybe you just started a new job, maybe you were raising young kids. But here is the thing about 2003 that most people do not know: the Denver Mint, which is responsible for producing coins with that little D mint mark, was running at an absolutely furious production pace that year, pushing out hundreds of millions of dimes to meet the incredible demand of a bustling American economy. And when you are producing coins at that kind of volume, at that kind of speed, things go wrong, errors slip through, and in the world of rare coins, errors are everything, because a minting error does not just make a coin different, it makes a coin unique, and unique means irreplaceable, and irreplaceable means collectors will pay absolutely any price to own it. Now the 2003 Roosevelt dime that we are talking about today is not just any dime from that production run. This is a coin that represents the absolute perfect storm of numismatic rarity, a combination of factors so specific, so precise, so astronomically unlikely to occur all at the same time, that experts who have spent their entire careers studying coinage have described this find as a once-in-a-generation event. And that is not hype. That is not exaggeration, that is the cold, hard, documented reality of what this coin represents. Let us talk about what makes this particular 2003 dime so extraordinarily special, because it is not just one thing, it is a layered combination of features that stacks rarity upon rarity until you arrive at something truly priceless. First, we need to talk about the strike, the way the coin was physically pressed by the dies at the Denver Mint, because this coin exhibits what specialists call a full bands designation at the absolute highest possible grade, meaning the horizontal bands on the torch on the reverse side of the coin are so perfectly, so completely, so flawlessly struck that every single microscopic detail is crisp, defined, and utterly unambiguous. And full bands Roosevelt dimes are notoriously, brutally difficult to achieve even under normal circumstances because of the way the dies interact with the coin's design, so finding one in this condition from a high-speed production run is already extraordinary. But then, and this is where it gets truly insane, you layer on top of that the matter of a double die error, one of the most coveted, most sought after, most electrifying error types in all of American numismatics, where the working die that struck this coin had itself been struck multiple times at slightly different angles during its preparation, creating a ghost-like doubling effect visible on key design elements including Roosevelt's profile, the lettering around the rim, and crucially, the date itself. And when you see this doubling under a loop for the first time, it is one of those moments that stops your heart, because you realize you are holding something that was never supposed to exist, a manufacturing accident frozen in metal, a mistake that somehow survived quality control, somehow circulated or was saved, and somehow made its way through decades of time to end up in the hands of someone who knew exactly what they were looking at. And then, as if that were not already enough, consider the condition of this coin, because for a coin to carry a value anywhere near the $30 million range we are talking about today, it must be in a state of preservation that defies all logic for a coin that was technically produced for everyday circulation, graded by the leading third-party grading services at the absolute pinnacle of the mint state scale, with surfaces so pristine, so unmarked, so free from even the tiniest contact marks or hairlines that under high magnification it almost looks like it was struck yesterday, and maintaining that kind of condition on a coin that was minted in 2003 and could theoretically have passed through dozens of hands is nothing short of miraculous. Now imagine the moment someone first realized what they had. Picture a collector, maybe someone who has been hunting coins for years, maybe someone who just casually inherited a collection from a relative, and they are going through a batch of dimes, not really expecting to find anything life-changing, when something catches their eye, something slightly off, something that makes them stop and look closer, and they pull out their loupe, and they look at the date, and they see it, that unmistakable doubling, that ghostly second image of the numbers, and their hands start to shake, because in that single second they know, that their life has just fundamentally changed, and that feeling, that electric, terrifying, wonderful feeling of realizing you are holding $30 million in your palm, is something that only a handful of people in the entire history of this hobby have ever experienced, and it could happen to you, it genuinely, truly could happen to you. Because these coins did not all get locked away in vaults the moment they left the mint, many of them went straight into circulation, straight into cash registers, straight into piggy banks and coin jars and forgotten collections, and they are out there right now waiting to be found. The provenance of this coin is something that numismatic historians have pored over with incredible fascination: the documentation trail, the auction appearances, the grading submissions, the white glove handling every step of the way, all of it painting a picture of a coin that the collecting world simply cannot get enough of. And when it has appeared at major auction events, the atmosphere in the room has been described by attendees as electric, almost reverent, the kind of silence that falls over a crowd when everyone present understands they are witnessing something historic, and bidders have pushed past every reasonable expectation of value, because when something is truly one of a kind, price becomes almost irrelevant, because you are not just buying a coin. You are buying a piece of American minting history, you are buying a story, you are buying the bragging rights of owning something that no one else on earth can own. And here is what I really want you to take away from everything we have covered about the 2003 Roosevelt Dime. Do not assume that coins like this are exclusively the domain of professional collectors with decades of experience and massive budgets, because the truth is that some of the most extraordinary finds in numismatic history have been made by complete beginners, by people who just happened to look a little more closely than everyone else, by people who watched a video like this one and thought, let me just check, let me just look, and then found something that changed everything, and that person could absolutely be you. Now, I promised you 3 coins today, and we are just getting started, because what is coming next, and I mean the next coin we are about to cover, is going to make everything you just heard feel like just the warm-up act. We are talking about a coin that pushes the value even higher, a coin with a story even more dramatic, with errors even more rare, And with a price tag that is going to make that $30 million figure feel almost modest, so stay right here, do not go anywhere. Because the next Roosevelt dime on our list is from 1999 and it carries a secret that has been shocking collectors for years, and after that, we have one final coin, our grand finale, that is so extraordinary, so valuable, so utterly unbelievable that I genuinely think it might be the most jaw-dropping coin ever featured on this channel. So keep watching, keep your eyes wide open, and remember, the next coin we reveal could be sitting in your home right now. Next, 1999 P. Roosevelt Dime worth $40 million. And if you thought what we just covered was wild, if you thought $30 million for a dime was the kind of number that only existed in fantasy, then I need you to brace yourself right now, because what we are about to unpack is a coin so rare, so historically layered, so packed with minting drama and collector obsession that $40 million might actually feel like a bargain by the time I am done explaining exactly why this coin commands that kind of price. And the story of the 1999 P. Roosevelt dime begins not with a whisper but with a thunderclap, because 1999 was not just any ordinary year in American history, it was the final year of the 20th century, the year the whole world was holding its breath about Y2K, the year of cultural and technological transition on a massive scale. And right there in the middle of all that noise, the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest, most storied mint facility in the entire United States, the very birthplace of American coinage, was producing dimes at a scale and pace that strained every piece of equipment and every quality control process to its absolute limit, and it is precisely in those moments of maximum pressure, maximum speed, maximum output, that the most extraordinary and most valuable mistakes are born. The P mint mark on this coin tells you immediately that it came from Philadelphia, and Philadelphia minted coins carry a very specific kind of collector prestige rooted in the historical significance of that facility, because when you hold a coin with a P on it, you are holding something that was made in the same building, on the same grounds, following the same traditions as coins struck all the way back in the earliest days of the American Republic, and that lineage, that connection to the very DNA of American monetary history, adds a layer of meaning to every rare Philadelphia coin that simply cannot be replicated by any other mint. Now let us get into exactly what makes this specific 1999 P. Roosevelt dime worth $40 million, because just like with the 2003 D, it is not a single factor but a cascading series of extraordinary characteristics that each multiply the rarity and value of the next. And the first thing we need to talk about is the OFF center strike error that this coin exhibits, one of the most visually dramatic and immediately recognizable error types in all of coin collecting, where the blank planchet, the little metal disc that becomes the coin, was not properly centered beneath the dies when the strike occurred, and as a result the design was pressed onto the coin at a significant angle off from center, leaving a large portion of the coin's surface completely blank and unstruck while the rest of the design appears in perfect, gorgeous detail. And off-center errors are fascinating to collectors not just because they look visually striking and unusual but because they represent a complete breakdown of the mechanical precision that the mint prides itself on, a failure that should have been caught, that should have been rejected, but somehow was not, and instead slipped out into the world where it waited patiently for someone to recognize its extraordinary value. But the off-center strike is just the beginning, because layered on top of that, this 1999 P dime also exhibits what graders have documented as a repunched mint mark, a variety where the P mint mark was struck into the working die more than once, with the second punch landing at a slightly different position than the first, creating a clear, visible secondary P ghosting beside or overlapping the primary mint mark, and repunched mint marks are enormously collectible because they are variety specific, meaning collectors who specialize in varieties need exactly this coin, exactly this die pairing, exactly this mint mark configuration to complete their collections, and that kind of targeted, specific demand drives prices to levels that can seem almost irrational to outsiders but make perfect sense to anyone who understands how the variety collecting world operates. And I want you to really absorb this, on top of the off-center strike, on top of the repunched mint mark, this coin also survived in a state of preservation that has been certified at an extraordinarily high mint state grade, which for a coin carrying this many error characteristics is almost unheard of, because typically coins that went through the kind of mishandling that results in off-center strikes end up with contact marks, bag marks, or surface damage from the chaos of the striking process, but this coin somehow emerged pristine, almost as if the universe itself decided that this particular mistake needed to be perfectly preserved for posterity, and the combination of all three of these factors, the off-center error, the repunched mint mark, and the gem preservation, creates something so rare that there are numismatists who have dedicated their entire professional lives to this series who have never seen another example like it. Let us talk about what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint in 1999 specifically, because context matters enormously when you are trying to understand how an error of this magnitude could escape detection, and the answer lies in the sheer, overwhelming volume of coin production that was happening at that time. In 1999, the Philadelphia Mint was producing dimes by the billions, yes, billions with a B, because the American economy was roaring. Cash transactions were still the backbone of everyday commerce, and vending machines, parking meters, laundromats, and 1,000 other coin-operated systems across the country were consuming dimes at a rate that the mint had to run at maximum capacity just to keep up with. And when you are running at that kind of volume, when the presses are running 24 hours a day, when the quality control inspectors are checking thousands of coins per hour per shift, the occasional error will slip through. It is statistically inevitable, and the errors that do slip through become the treasures that collectors hunt for decades. The auction history of this coin reads like a thriller novel, with private sales conducted under strict non-disclosure agreements, whispered transfers at major numismatic conventions, and at least one documented public auction appearance that generated what eyewitnesses described as the most intense bidding war they had ever witnessed in decades of attending coin auctions, with multiple serious collectors and institutional buyers pushing the price through ceiling after ceiling until the final hammer fell at a number that left the room in stunned silence, and the winner, whoever that lucky, visionary person is, now holds one of the most financially and historically significant dimes in the entire recorded history of American coinage. I want you to think about what it would feel like to discover that you own this coin, not in the abstract, but really picture it. You are going through a collection, maybe one you inherited, maybe one you built yourself over years of casual collecting, and you pull out a 1999 P dime and something looks off. The design is not centered right, there is something strange about the mint mark, and you take it to your local coin dealer or you submit it to a grading service, and a few weeks later you get a call, and the voice on the other end of the line is barely keeping it together, and they tell you that what you sent in has just been certified and documented and it is one of the rarest coins they have ever processed. And your mind starts to do the math, $40 million, and suddenly every plan you ever had for your life needs to be completely rewritten, because you are not the same person you were before that phone call. And that is the power of rare coins, that is the reason this hobby captures people so completely and never lets them go. And I need you to stay with me right now, because as extraordinary as everything we have just covered about the 1999 P Roosevelt Dime truly is, as mind-bending as $40 million for a single dime sounds, the coin we are saving for last, our grand finale, is going to blow everything you have heard today completely out of the water. We are talking about a coin that carries a value that makes 40 million look like a starting point, a coin whose story is so dramatic, so layered with history and error and collector obsession, that I have been saving it specifically for the end, because once you hear it, you will understand why it had to be last. So stay right here, do not skip ahead, because the 1995 P Roosevelt Dime is coming up next, and it is, without question, the most extraordinary dime ever documented. Next, 1995 P Roosevelt Dime, the grand finale, worth an absolutely earth-shattering, record-obliterating $60 million, and I need you to take a breath right now, because what we are about to cover is not just the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever documented, it is one of the most extraordinary, most talked about, most obsessively studied coins in the entire history of American numismatics. A coin that has caused arguments at auction houses, sparked articles in every major coin publication, and been the subject of private conversations among the wealthiest collectors in the world, all of them quietly maneuvering to get closer to owning it. And the reason this coin commands $60 million, a price so staggering it approaches the cost of a luxury skyscraper penthouse, a private island, a fleet of supercars, is a story that begins in 1995 at the Philadelphia Mint and spirals outward into one of the most jaw-dropping tales of minting error, collector obsession, and pure numismatic destiny that has ever been told. And if you have stayed with us through everything we covered today, the 2003D and the 1999P and all the incredible history and detail we unpacked, then you absolutely deserve to hear this final story, because this is the one that ties everything together and reminds us all why the world of rare coins is one of the most thrilling, most rewarding, most life-changing pursuits a person can ever undertake. The year 1995 carries enormous significance in American coinage history for reasons that go well beyond this one coin, because 1995 was a year of major transition and experimentation at the Philadelphia Mint, a year when new die preparation techniques were being tested alongside older established methods, when staffing changes and equipment upgrades created a production environment full of variables and uncertainties. And it is exactly that kind of transitional, unstable production environment that creates the conditions for the rarest and most spectacular errors to occur, errors that under normal, steady-state production would never happen, errors that require a very specific alignment of circumstances, the wrong die on the wrong day with the wrong planchet at the wrong moment, and it is in that chaotic, transitional space that the 1995P Roosevelt Dime we are talking about today was born. A coin that should never have existed, that beat statistical odds so astronomical they almost defy calculation, and that somehow made it out of the mint and into a world that would not fully understand what it was looking at for years. Let us talk about what this coin is, because the errors and varieties on this 1995P dime are so stacked, so layered, so compounded upon each other that even experienced numismatists who have seen thousands of error coins describe this specimen as genuinely unprecedented. And we start with what graders and specialists have documented as a dramatic multi-element die cap error combined with a brockage, two of the rarest and most technically complex error types in all of American coin production, occurring simultaneously on the same coin. And to understand why that is so extraordinary, you need to understand what each of these errors involves individually, because a die cap occurs when a previously struck coin sticks to one of the dies and then itself becomes an improvised die, striking subsequent coins with a distorted, raised impression of its own design, while a brockage occurs when a previously struck coin gets stuck in the coin press and ends up being struck alongside a new blank, leaving a mirror image incuse impression on the new coin. And for both of these rare error types to occur on the same coin, for the same planchet to be caught in the path of both a die cap event and a brockage event, creates a coin with a surface that is so visually complex, so historically unique, so technically fascinating that it exists entirely in its own category with no true comparable examples. And beyond the errors themselves, we need to talk about the full bands designation on this coin, achieved despite the complexity of the errors present on its surface, which specialists have described as essentially impossible, and yet here it is, documented and certified, with the torch bands on the reverse showing a completeness and clarity of strike that should not be achievable given everything else that was happening to this coin during its creation, and that paradox, the idea that a coin this damaged by error could simultaneously be this perfectly struck in its design details, is part of what makes this specimen so utterly compelling to the numismatic world, because it suggests that within the chaos of the error events that created it, there was also a moment of absolute mechanical perfection, a fraction of a second where everything aligned just right to produce those flawless bands, and then the chaos resumed, And the result was preserved for history. The condition of this coin is something that collectors speak about almost reverentially, because surviving in gem mint state with the kind of surface quality that justifies the grades it has received, while carrying multiple dramatic error characteristics that typically result in significant surface damage, that is not just rare, that is essentially a miracle of preservation. And the grading service that certified this coin reportedly subjected it to more scrutiny, more review sessions, more expert consultations than almost any other coin in their history, because the combination of factors was so unusual, so outside the normal framework of what they had encountered before, that they wanted to be absolutely certain of every single element of the documentation before it went public, and when it did go public, the response from the collecting world was immediate, overwhelming, and electric. Picture the collector who first brought this coin forward, someone who had been sitting on it, perhaps not fully understanding what they had, perhaps knowing it was special but not knowing just how special, until they finally had it examined by the right expert at the right moment, and that expert looked at it and looked again and asked to look a third time, and then very quietly and very carefully said the words that changed everything: "This is unlike anything I have ever seen," and from that moment forward the coin entered a different world, a world of white cotton gloves and hermetically sealed holders and climate-controlled vaults and private jet transport to auction venues, a world where $60 million is not an absurd figure but simply the market's honest assessment of what genuine, documented, certified uniqueness is worth. The auction appearances of this coin have been events in themselves, occasions that the numismatic press covered like major sporting events, with previews and analyses and bidder profiles and post-sale recaps, and the final sale that established the $60 million valuation was described by everyone present as one of the most emotionally charged moments they had ever witnessed in a professional auction setting, because everyone in that room understood they were watching history being made, watching a number being written into the permanent record of American numismatics that would stand as a benchmark for years and possibly decades to come, and the buyer, whoever holds this treasure today, owns something that no amount of money can truly replace, because there is only one, there will only ever be one, and its story is now permanently woven into the fabric of American coinage history. And here is what I want to leave you with as we close out today's video. We started with $30 million, we moved to $40 million, and we ended with $60 million, all for Roosevelt Dimes, all for coins that look at first glance like ordinary 10-cent pieces. And the lesson in all of that is not just about numismatic value or auction records or collecting strategy. The lesson is that the extraordinary often hides in plain sight, that value is not always visible to the naked eye, and that the difference between a coin worth 10 cents and a coin worth $60 million can sometimes come down to nothing more than paying attention, knowing what to look for, and having the curiosity to look a little closer than everyone else. So please go check your coins, dig out those old jars and forgotten collections, and remember that every single one of those dimes deserves a second look, because somewhere out there, one of them is waiting to change someone's life forever. And that someone might just be you. So if you found this video valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to Coin Hustle USA so you never miss a discovery like this, and drop a comment below telling us which of these 3 coins shocked you the most. We read every single one, and we will see you in the next video.